Well, it's about time.
You are Locked On Mississippi State, your daily podcast on the Mississippi State Bulldogs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On Mississippi State your first listen every single day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Well, like I said, Landon, it's about time, as the NCAA announced on Thursday, a new college football rule change that is intended to cut back on the number of players faking injuries. This has obviously been a very big issue in college football, golly, for like a decade, it feels like.
At least.
Yeah, maybe longer. But under the new guidelines, which will go into effect this fall, the team will be charged a timeout if medical staff come onto the field to evaluate a player after the ball has been spotted. If the player's team has no timeouts left, the team will receive a 5-yard penalty for delay of game instead. So, first thoughts?
I think it's actually something that could work. I mean, obviously, you're never going to get rid of all of the faking injuries because anytime there's a change, the people who were doing this to begin with will then find a new loophole, like just having the guy stay down from immediately as soon as the play was done instead of mysteriously falling down after the ball was spotted. And really, that's the biggest problem that I always had with it. It was obvious when people were faking. I mean, so that would, but I think this could actually work, at least eliminate a large portion and the clearly blatant and obvious attempts at it.
Yeah, I think they're missing one key piece in it. I think the piece that they're missing is if it is determined a player is faking an injury, like you force a timeout, call it, whatever it is, throw a flag for a delay of game, that player should be out the rest of the drive. Yeah. I think that would also eliminate some of the stuff. And that way, the one thing that would kind of suck, though, is it's almost like a judgment, though, if you do it. Because like you said, what if they're teaching these guys, hey, this team goes fast. So after like play 4 or 5, as soon as the ball's dead, just fall.
Take a step and go down. Yeah.
And in those instances, the only way to overcome that would be he has to sit out a whole drive. And that might be the rule could be if you go down for an injury period, you have to at least sit out a drive.
They could make it similar to how the concussion protocol is. Like if you're clear, like if you take it to the head, you have to go in the blue tent. Maybe it becomes, if you go down and the medical staff comes out, you have to go get checked out on the sideline to where you miss at least 3 or 4 plays, just for how long it would take to actually conduct that exam.
Yeah, but claps to the NCAA. They did something.
Move in the right direction.
Yeah, now we'll see if it goes through the courts and it gets shut down or overturned, or because it seems like the times they tried to do stuff, that always happens. But no, overall, I think it's great. Obviously our rival, they kind of like doing that a little bit. Ole Miss does.
Yeah, it's always good when your head coach is like the face on all of like the articles for this.
Yeah, I've loved that. Every article's Lane Kiffin, and that's been great because they are notorious at it. And the one thing I will say about the teams that do it, you can't be mad at it because it's technically not against the rules.
Yeah, it's not against.
But it wasn't.
And I feel like the next domino to fall after this, since we're on the rule changes, is the late sub rule. When the offense subs and the defense waits until like the 5-second mark to sub someone. Right. I think that'll be the next one they'll probably tackle in the next year or two. But
that rule is so weird because I've seen some officials you can sub whenever. They could take a guy off the field and you could wait 20 seconds to send a guy on, and they don't care. I've seen other officials walk away and just say go, and then they bring in the rules expert, and they're like, yeah, if they feel like they had enough time to get off the field and on the field, they can move. And I'm like, well, why is all these other officials doing this?
Just wait for 30 seconds. Like, are you sure? Are you sure?
Like, the one I hate most is like when one guy starts to jog on, then he starts to jog off, then I do need to come back on. Kind of thing that wastes an extra.
And when it's the defensive tackle who's not going to be moving fast regardless.
Right. And then they kind of do this little half jog onto the field.
The one you did in high school when you knew the coach was watching.
Yeah. my favorite one, though, is when like a young guy is getting put in the game and he sprints to the line. You can see the official or the coach just yelling at him, like, what are you doing? That's why you don't play. But he's like so eager to be in the game. But no, it's a step in the right direction. It's something that needed to be corrected. It's a bad issue in college football. But again, it wasn't against the rules, and that's the thing. That's the one thing by reading this context, and you already pointed it out. You can read and find the loopholes in this, and the loophole is, hey, if this is an up-tempo team, we know it is. Like Mississippi State's an up-tempo team, so if it's like a 4, they ran 3-4 plays, or maybe if they bust a play
or get in a rhythm, bust a big play. Who's the one that's going down?
Yeah, and that is obviously still on the table. Like that could happen and it not be illegal, and that's where it's kind of hard because do you let the officials then have a judgment call on it? Like, and I will say most penalties are judgment calls. Obviously, they are, but is it a judgment call at that point? Do you trust the officials to do that as a judgment call? Because what if the player is actually hurt?
As someone who watches a lot of college football, I don't trust the officials to make a judgment call. I barely trust them to make the judgment calls that they have to make. I don't want to be adding anything else to their plate, but it's one of those things where normally it's obvious because you get the guy who's perfectly fine and then all of a sudden he's just on the ground.
Oh, he's looking to the sidelines, then he just drops.
Yeah, or he looks to the sideline, gets in a stance, and then falls. Those are the guys who are good at acting. Like they at least,
or he's running to the sideline, team's about to snap it, and so he drops real quick. Stuff normally, like that.
Those are really, and another thing they could add in, like if it's determined that it was a faked injury, it's a 15-yard penalty at that point. Whatever is tacked on automatic first down, because then if you got a good actor, maybe it's worth it. But if not, there's, you've lost a timeout and the other team picked up 15 yards, and that can decide games pretty quick that way.
And the one thing I'll also say, officials need to be more aware of actual injuries that are just kind of taking a while for the guy to drop. For example, I've seen, we've seen guys get cussed where you can tell they're loopy, but they're sitting back there about to play the snap like they're like nothing's going on. Sometimes you'll see them stop it because they recognize that, but you got to be on guard more because that's a guy that might not drop immediately, and he might, eventually drop, and the ball's already been set, and so then it's a penalty or a timeout wasted. So officials kind of have to be in the know on that.
And cramps are another one because those aren't always going to hit you when it's convenient for the refs. Like that's one that you could be going just fine. All of a sudden your leg locks up and you got to go down. And so it's going to be interesting how it's policed.
Yeah, for sure. And Mississippi State, they're a beneficiary for this because, again, they're a team that goes up tempo. And so teams are more prone to fake these injuries against a team like Mississippi State. And these fast team, Tennessee's another one that runs a very similar offense. So they're more prone to just drop when they play these kind of guys and fake these injuries to slow them down. And now this also makes it tougher for coaching staffs and especially your strength and conditioning staff. You got to get these guys in better condition now. And the week of a game against a Mississippi State, a Tennessee, you got to be practicing it.
Bleachers.
Yeah, because you got to be ready to go for these kind of things.
Yeah, and I feel like when the super fast up-tempo offenses first really started coming in, 10, 12, 14 years ago, I think that's when there was the most widespread of the faking of the injuries, just because no one knew how to deal with an offense that was running a play every 7 seconds at that point. But now I feel like the players gave up on even acting like they were hurt.
Yeah.
Like back then there was at least there was some art to it. You acted like you were hurt.
Right.
Now you just fall on the ground. They're like, hey, bring the trainer.
Yeah. Oh, I promise I'm hurt. And then they come to the side. Some of them jump up and run to the sidelines or
grabbing their shoulder. It's my hammy.
Yeah. And then the next play, they're right back on the field. And that's when the boo birds come out. But
usually
overall,
they come out as soon as the guy hits the ground.
Yeah. Overall, I still think it's a great thing. It's moving in the right direction. It was much needed. So
we've already pointed out a bunch of the loopholes, which I'm sure coaches have already found those as well. It'll help. It'll cut it down. It becomes, de-incentivizes it. So hopefully, we get back to just some football instead of that stuff.
Yeah, and I would expect more rules to be put on it. Like you have to set out a drive. I think more will come on it because I think there will be some coaches try to take advantage of the loopholes. I just do. So
that's your job as a coach.
Yeah. It is. You're supposed to give your team the biggest advantage you can do. So sometimes that's finding the loopholes.
So, Levy, we have a few tips for you if you want to check it out.
Yep, check out the podcast, like, subscribe, tell your friends.
Show the team.
Yeah.
Parts. Don't show them the parts.
All the fun stuff. But all right, well, come up next. We teased it yesterday. SEC running back rankings are out. CBS Sports put that together. And it's an interesting list. We'll just say that. We'll talk about it. That's coming up. Well, did you know your Fire TV is also an Xbox? Turn any TV into your gaming and entertainment hub with Fire TV Stick 4K devices. No console required. Just grab your paired controller, subscribe, or sign into Xbox Game Pass Ultimate with EA Play included, and you're ready to play. Dive into hundreds of premium titles from EA Sports College Football 25 to Call of Duty Black Ops 6 and Avowed. I haven't even heard of that one. So as easy as you stream your favorite shows, it's gaming made simple, and it's all on your Fire TV. With 4K streaming, watch more than 1.5 million movies and TV episodes from your favorite subscribed services like Netflix, Prime Video, Disney Plus, Max, and more. My fiance and I, we're big on the TV shows. We just finished The Recruit on Netflix. We're watching Love on the Spectrum. We're all over the place with all of it. We really enjoy it. But also, if you're a hardcore gamer, I love playing video games. Making it where you don't have to have an Xbox console makes it so much easier. I'll probably sell my Xbox console and check this out. So if you're a big-time gamer, you definitely want to check this out. All you have to do, head to Amazon.com, Fire TV, Amazon.com/Fire TV, locked on to get started. Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscription and compatible controller required. Available on select devices, including Fire TV Stick 4K second generation, Fire TV Stick 4K Max first and second generation, and Fire TV Cube third generation. All right, well, thanks for making Locked On Mississippi State your first listen every single day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. All right, like I said, CBS Sports, they came out with an interesting list of the top it lists the top 16 running backs. So each starting running back from every school. So there will be no second teamers on here. And this was after the recent portal edition. So number one, Jay Knott, now at Oklahoma, was at Cal, was an All-American at Cal. Makes sense. Number two, Caden Durham. He was a true freshman last year, had a great season. And he's number two. Number three, Le'Veon Moss. Again, got injured at the end of the year. He's arguably the best running back in the SEC. So a great pick there. Quintravion Wisner for Texas. He ran for 1,064 yards and 5 touchdowns. He also added 311 yards receiving. He kind of burst on the scene later on in the season. And so he's number 4. Nate Frazier, 5. 6 is Jaden Baugh from Florida. Ahmad Hardy from Missouri, number 7. Oh, Nate Frazier's from Georgia, by the way. Number 8, Devon Booth from Mississippi State. I don't know about that one.
Yeah, I don't either. I think we should have heard that name a little bit higher in that list.
Yeah, my initial reaction reading it is he's top 5. You can't tell me 5 running backs are better than him. I'm taking him over Hardy, who was again, sensational freshman season, but he was at Louisiana Monroe. Okay, let's see what he's got to do at the SEC level. Ball rush for 520 yards and 7 touchdowns. Yes, I know it was in the final 7 games. Again, too much unknown with him.
Yeah.
And then Nate Frazier, again, ran for 671 yards as a freshman. He's just not proven yet. Now, the top 4, if you want to say those guys are ahead of him, I can get on board with that. But the 3 right ahead of him, that's where I have issues.
Same. You had a bunch of guys who just they don't have a track record. And if what track record they do have is either in a different level of competition or a very small sample size.
Yeah.
So I don't know. There's a lot of projection, and we've been over this in multiple lists that we've done.
Yeah.
It's like, well, they're projecting here, and then you get to the end of the list, and he's knocking people for not having more production. So it's like, okay, we'll knock these 3 down to the bottom of the list then.
Right. Yeah, it's just a strange list because, like you said, a lot of it is projection. Like Nate Frazier, freshman, had a great year. Hardy, as a freshman, had a great year. So you're projecting that this will continue. And maybe it will. We know definitely you see it all the time in the NFL. running back's a position that you can find a lot of really good running backs. I mean, a lot of NFL teams find them in the late rounds or as undrafted players.
Yeah.
You can find really good running backs. And so that's why if the Hardy kid comes into the SEC and does really well, like he did at Louisiana Monroe, it's not surprising.
No.
Like, you can find these guys.
Yeah, you can. And another thing, just going off their stats, was since we're talking about all these different players moving around, how does Dante Dowdle, who had 614 yards and 12 touchdowns playing in Nebraska, not go ahead of those other guys on this list too, if we're going off of stats?
Right.
The list just doesn't make sense to me for a lot of different reasons. But yeah, Booth needs to be higher. Like, he's proven it. He's got a track record. He's going back to his old number, going to give him even more juice. I'm calling it.
Right. Well, and this is another thing. Deshaun Bishop hasn't had a lot of production, obviously, and neither has Peyton Lewis or Star Thomas, who will probably split the backfield. But Tennessee has a long history of, especially under Heupel and Heupel's offense, we see it with Booth with Mississippi State, of running the football very effectively. We just saw it last year. No one expected him to come on the scene and have this huge year, and he did, and he helped lead them to the Tennessee to the college football playoff. And so, why isn't he up higher if you're going off projection?
Yeah, like I feel like we're just circling this whole thing, just like this part doesn't make sense, but this part doesn't make sense. So we have issues with how we put the list together and with where our boy ended up on the list.
Yeah, and Dylan Sampson was who I was talking about from Tennessee, but he's obviously not there anymore. He probably would be number one.
I really like in the draft, but
yeah, a lot of people do, and I understand that. You look at his career numbers for Booth, and he has only 1,564 yards. He had over 750 yards both years. He has 11 touchdowns, but he's averaging almost 6 yards a carry. And he averaged, even though Mississippi State went 2-10 last year, he averaged 5 yards per carry last year. That's really good.
And he also is a threat out of the backfield with 4 receiving touchdowns.
Yeah.
I mean, that also has to factor in, especially when you're running these wide open offenses. The running back has to be able to catch the ball, and he's proven he can do that.
Yeah, and when you're averaging 5 yards per carry with a bad team who really couldn't throw last year. Now, again, Michael Van Buren, I think, has a lot of potential, and he did really good for a true freshman, but he wasn't expected to be the starter. Blake Shapen goes down, and so Booth is a guy that, he had a lot of work cut out for him because of not having really a passing game around him. And another thing that kind of bugged me is they talked about, Ball, for example, from Florida. Oh, he had 650 yards or whatever it was the last 7 games. Well, Booth did the same kind of thing. Like, we've talked about his numbers, and he went off the last, 6-7 games as well.
And also, you mentioned him not having a passing game. His line was so bad that they basically got a whole new one in the transfer portal this year.
Right.
And you're doing that with a line that the coaching staff basically said, we're not really, granted, some of them are now gone pro, they're out of eligibility. It's not that they just moved on from all of them, but to the point where they were like, no, we don't feel good about what's in this building. We don't like some of what stayed. We need pretty much a whole new line to now block for him. And he put up those numbers behind that line with no passing game.
Yeah, and the first 6 games of the year, maybe that's what they're holding against him. But again, like I mentioned later on in the year, last 6 games of the season, he goes for 535 yards and 3 touchdowns, averages 6 yards per carry. This is a good chunk of your SEC play.
Seems pretty good.
Yeah, and that's, again, a big chunk of your SEC play. That averages to almost 1,100 yards rushing for a season if he would have kept that up the whole season. But I feel like he's getting penalized for not having a strong start to the season. But it was also his first year at Mississippi State, first year with Jeff Lebby. You're trying to figure everything out.
Yeah, you're trying to figure everything out. And there's another thing that might be weighing in some of this. It's the whole thing I brought up before. If you're a 5-star prospect, you're a 5-star prospect the entire time you're in.
Yeah, rest of your life.
And Booth was not.
No.
He was.
And went to Utah State.
3-star coming out of
JUCO. Went to Utah State. Yeah,
yep.
I mean, so that's why he's back, because he had the JUCO year.
And I think that's part of it. It's the same kind of thing. You see it all the time. Oh, this guy's got all the potential. Why? He hasn't shown us anything. Oh, well, when he was 17, some people who went and watched him said he was really good.
Oh, so you're saying stars matter? They do matter.
They do.
Matter of fact. But no, you're right on the money. So I think this will be a big year for him to prove it because again, he played really well at the second half of the year. He got more comfortable with Levy. Levy got more comfortable with him in the running game as a whole. We think the offensive line will be better. It can't be much worse.
Hope it's better.
So,
hope there's some passing game.
Yeah, and so
a lot of things.
We'll see if he can kind of prove people wrong as the year goes on. But all right, well, coming up next, we've got to talk about how good the wide receivers will be because Jordan Mosley, he had some interesting comments about the wide receiver room. We'll talk about that coming up next. All right, well, thanks for making Locked On Mississippi State your first listen every single day. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So this was earlier this week. Jordan Mosley, who's a senior receiver, obviously, with Mississippi State, he did a little bit of a Q&A, met with the media for the first time this spring, kind of shared his thoughts on the wide receiver room. He was asked straight up, what guys have kind of caught your attention so far? And he said pretty much all of them. He says the guys came in with the right mindset, ready to work every day. He said, I think this is probably the deepest room we've had, but I think we've got a lot of guys that have added a different aspect to the game, to the offense. We've got some bigger guys that can go out there and be physical and make tough physical plays. Then we got some speed guys.
Yeah,
and then he mentioned specifically Ricky Johnson is having a phenomenal spring right now. But yeah, he said it's good to watch everybody come together and try to gel as a group. And so we talked about they revamped this wide receiver room completely in the portal.
Yeah, they have. And he mentioned the speed. We've talked about it all so much. There's so much speed in that room. But what really caught me was what he talked about Ricky Johnson. He said he's probably the smoothest route runner I've seen in a long time. That's a redshirt freshman.
Yeah.
He's saying that about. So that's exciting. With the room, he might he's obviously going to get on the field if he's that talented. But when you have a deep of room as we expect them to have, and as that Jordan Mosley is saying they have, he might not get a ton of playing time, but that makes you excited for the future that you have that guy who is a great route runner and is about 6'2", 6'2", 185, 190. That's a big guy to be the smoothest route runner he's ever seen.
Yeah, and he hyped up Grayson Harris, who's a true freshman. So he hyped up a lot of different guys. The one interesting thing I thought he said, he was talking about the quarterbacks actually, and he talked about Blake, obviously being the leader, and he's doing a really good job. But yeah, he mentioned how Luke Cromenhawk and Camario Taylor, not a lot of confidence with them right now, and not saying he doesn't have it. He's saying they don't have the confidence right now. And part of that is understood. Taylor's obviously a true freshman. Cromenhawk is a transfer coming over, but it just reiterates our opinion that we've said multiple times that if Blake goes down again, Van Buren was a talented true freshman, and I think Taylor is too, but I think Van Buren was more ready than Taylor is right now.
Yeah, Van Buren was more ready as a passer, and I will say, that caught my eye. It was very much Blake, stay healthy. That was basically what that was, because, like we've talked about with Camario Taylor, it's said he's got one of the best arms I've ever seen. I'm really hoping that Mosley watches a lot of tape and these aren't he's seen more than 8 quarterbacks or something.
Right.
Because we have smoothest route runner and best arms in the same interview. And I'm just kind of man, I hope you're not getting a little too high on your own guys, but
he's hyping his guys up.
Even if he is a little bit, that's all right to hype up your boys. But no, Taylor does have a great arm. He just kind of has to learn how to control it and understand the offense. But we've talked about his raw true freshman. You don't expect him to play a lot, so that's okay.
Yeah, he's an electric runner.
You hope he doesn't have to play a lot for sure.
Yeah, you hope he doesn't have to play for sure, but. No, it's again, he didn't even mention Anthony Evans, but that was a big get from Georgia, who's also another speedster. So there's just a lot of guys on this team that, and like you mentioned, they have basically a basketball starting five up there. You got your tall physical guys, you got their short, fast guys, and that's what you need. Then you need a player to be kind of your technical route runner. Sometimes that's a tight end, which obviously isn't at Mississippi State. It could be. Sometimes it's tight end, sometimes it's a slot, depending on the team. We know it's probably not the tight end because they're going to try to find that in the portal. Levy's talked about that.
Hopefully that's the center to this basketball team. Go get the 6'7" guy.
Right. So we'll see what happens, but it's a lot of good things, especially ahead of the spring game. That's happening tomorrow. So it's gonna be a lot of fun stuff. It'll be
I'm starting to buy the hype.
Yeah, starting to be a believer. We're at that point of the offseason. Yeah. No, the spring game is usually when I see stuff on the spring game. I'm like, oh, this team's winning the national championship. So
when I watch the spring game, it's like, that just kind of look like practice.
Yeah. So we'll see what ends up happening with the spring game. We'll definitely talk about that on Monday. But thanks for making Locked On Mississippi State your first listen today. For your second listen, check out the Locked On NFL Draft with Damian Parson and Keith Sanchez. As your favorite collegiate players get ready for the next level, get the latest draft rankings, rumors, and news every day. Find Locked On NFL Draft on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcasts. I'm Jaron. Check out my work over on Athlon Sports. Also follow me on Twitter right there. There's Landon. His social media is right there as well. Follow Locked On Mississippi State. We're on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, YouTube. We're posting short videos on the other three. On YouTube, we're obviously posting the full video. So check all those out. Like, share, subscribe, tell your friends, all the fun stuff. And until next time, Hail State.
Hail State.